Jacob's trouble. The following prophecy in the book of Jeremiah deals with the restoration of Judah and Israel and the necessary birth pains that they will suffer in the latter days. I will not go into a great detail. However, although there is a secular nation in the Middle East called Israel, it is not the final Israel, neither the final Judah described by Jeremiah the prophet. It is clear from the Old Testament that there will be a second greater exodus in the future. Jeremiah 32, Jehovah, the God of Israel, says, "Write all the words that I have spoken to you in a book." Jeremiah is directed to write what God had spoken to him. He must write them and publish them, in hopes that those who had not profited by what he said, upon once hearing it, might take more notice of it when they had time to read it. He must collect them and put them together. And God will now add more words to the prophecy. He must write them for the generations to come, who should see them accomplished. He must write them not in a letter, as that in the chapter before to the captives, but in a book, to be carefully preserved in the archives. Jeremiah 33, "For behold, the days come, says Jehovah, that I will reverse the captivity of my people Israel and Judah, says Jehovah. I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they will possess it. It is intimated that they shall be beloved for their father's sake. For therefore God will bring them again to Canaan, because it was the land that he gave to their fathers, which therefore they shall possess." Romans 11:28, "As concerning the gospel, they are enemies for your sakes. But as touching the election, they are beloved for the Father's sakes." The false prophets told them that they should have peace. But there is fear and not peace, so the margin reads it. "No marvel that when without are fightings, within are fears. The men, even the men of war, shall be quite overwhelmed with the calamities of their nation, shall sink under them, and yield to them, and shall look like women in labor whose pains come upon them in great extremity, and they know that they cannot escape them." Jeremiah 36, "Ask now and see whether a man travails with child. Why do I see every man with his hands on his waist, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned pale?" You never heard of a man travailing with child, and yet here you find not here and there a timorous man, but every man with his hands on his loins in the utmost anguish and agony, as women in travail, when they see their cities burnt and their countries laid waste. This pain is compared to that of a woman in travail, not to that of a deathbed, because it shall end in joy at last, and the pain, like that of a travailing woman, shall be forgotten. Jeremiah 37, "Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he will be saved out of it." The prophet laments the calamity upon the foresight of it. "Alas, for that day is great, a day of judgment, which is called the great day, the great and terrible day of the Lord, great, so that there has been none like it. Joel 2, "Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand." Joel 2:2, "A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong. There hath not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations." The last destruction of Jerusalem is spoken of by our Savior as unparalleled. Matthew 24:21, "For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be." Matthew 24:22, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened." It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, a terrible time, when God's professing people shall be in distress above other people. He must write the assurances which God had given that a happy end should at length be put to these calamities. Jacob's troubles shall cease. He shall be saved out of them. Jeremiah 38, "It will come to pass in that day, says Yahweh of armies, that I will break his yoke from off your neck and will burst your bonds. Strangers will no more make them their bondservants. The Lord of hosts, who has all power in his hand, undertakes to do it. They shall no more enrich themselves either by thy possessions or by thy labors." Jeremiah 39, "But they will serve Yahweh their God and David their king, whom I will raise up to them. They shall be delivered from serving their enemies, not that they may live at large and do what they please, but that they may serve the Lord their God and David their king. They were brought into trouble and made to serve their enemies, because they had not served the Lord their God as they ought to have done, with joyfulness and gladness of heart. We are delivered out of the hands of our enemies, so that we may serve God." Luke 1:73, "The oath which he sware to our father Abraham." Luke 1:74, "That he would grant unto us that we, being delivered out of the hand of our enemies, might serve him without fear." They shall serve their own God, and neither be inclined as they had been of old in the day of their apostasy, nor compelled, as they had been of late in the day of their captivity, to serve other gods. David was an illustrious type of Jesus Christ, both in his humiliation and in his ultimate exaltation. The covenant of royalty made with David had principal reference to Jesus Christ, and in him the promises of that covenant had their full accomplishment. God gave Jesus the throne of his father David. He raised him up unto them, set him upon the holy hill of Zion. Those that are delivered out of spiritual bondage must make it appear so, by giving up themselves to the service of Jesus Christ. Those to whom he gives rest must take his yoke upon them. Jeremiah 30:11. For I am with you, says Yahweh, to save you. For I will make a full end of all the nations where I have scattered you. But I will not make a full end of you, but I will correct you in measure, and will in no way leave you unpunished. God promises that all Jacob's wounds will be healed, and all their wealth will be restored. Jeremiah 30:17. For I will restore health to you, and I will heal you of your wounds, says Yahweh. Because they have called you an outcast, saying, It is Zion whom no man seeks after. Although all suffering is bewildering at the time and no correction is ever welcomed, we will eventually understand God's good intentions toward us in the latter days. Jeremiah 30:24. The fierce anger of Yahweh will not return until he has accomplished, and until he has performed the intentions of his heart. In the latter days we will understand it. If you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe. Have a great week. Thanks.